None dare call it hoax. The prevailing wisdom among conspiracy theorists a few years ago was, don't automatically call it a hoax, and think of the victims and their families. Those who jumped the gun can call fake news out, as such were derisively called auto-hoaxers. As it turned out, they were right all along. They rejected the burden of proof. By withholding agreement, they were inoculated against the worst effects of personal involvement in emotionally charged propaganda. Employing skepticism in today's hyper-mediated world is only reasonable. What was originally a pejorative term became a description for media skeptics who have progressed beyond alternative media explanations for staged events. Auto-hoaxology is the cutting fringe of alternative thought, and it's ironic that conspiracy theorists touting red pills attempted to silence the first wave of auto-hoaxers. Fake until proven real. All MSM extraordinary claims must be met with requests for evidence. This places the burden of proof back to the maker of the claim. The media puts it on you to ignore the lack of evidence, to just believe uncritically. This is because they wish MSM viewers to be believers, not knowers. Believers exist in a world of subjectivity. Knowers have an objective understanding of the world. When people accuse us of calling all news fake, the counter should be to accuse them of believing all news is real. In this case, the skeptics have a point, the anti-skeptics do not. But because we know the media is a liar, they have the capability of lying, and they have a predilection for using psychological operations and special effects to augment their reportage. We can't give them blind faith and trust. The auto-hoaxer corrects the burden of proof demands and refuses to believe or react to it as though it is true until the evidence supports reacting. Unless evidence supports the extraordinary claims, it must be treated as fake if it is fakeable until or proven real. The low information believer has a low bar. The informed disbeliever maintains reasonable standards. This fake until proven real becomes increasingly necessary as realistic generative AI becomes part of our everyday experience. Simulated, not stimulated. Conspiracy theorists believe the government is causing things and the media reports on them, for example, school shootings. They call these false flags. This implies real events stimulated by a hidden hand. The trouble with this explanation is it assumes the media itself is merely reporting real events and not involved in the fabrications. This both exonerates the media and conceals their actual role as worldview fabricators rather than news reporters. Viewpoints that contradict mainstream lies are cancelled or ignored, while false flag conspiracy theories get promoted via negative coverage. The most important distinction between the MSM, MSM+, and MSM- points of view is that the MSM- view includes excluded information. For instance, the inclusion of influence operations, covert propaganda messaging in mainstream entertainment, media fakery, entirely reframes each event. However, the fact that simulated events, PSYOPs, are routinely staged is not part of the MSM perspective. So in addition to subtracting the unverifiable, there is the addition of supplementary verifiable information. The auto-hoaxer is not a denier of any facts. Rejecting bad or incomplete information is not denialism. Believing in fake events despite lack of good information is reality augmentation, also known as lying. The believer versus knower distinction is the core of the auto-hoaxer concept. Here are a few key points I'd like to clarify in this regard. Auto-hoaxer, one who requires evidence for claims made by pathological lying media, especially when the claims are extraordinary. This requires investigation, fact-finding, and thorough examination. This is not always conclusive immediately, and therefore, the auto-hoaxer is often left having to suspend judgment and overreactions to televised news. This stance is in contrast to the auto-believer, one who assumes what is televised to be true. Their assumption is that the fake news or hoaxes would be exposed by the reporters or journalists. Their error stems from both blind conformity and the false premise that reporters aren't part of the production process. So they see reporters as bystanders with cameras, watching a scene unfold, rather than as a reality television production crew, which is what they essentially are. I apply the fakeability test to likely or suspected fake news. This is simply asking the question such as, can this or that event be faked? Is it fakeable? And if so, On what scale? Without this test, which is only a series of questions, an auto-believer would not be able to claim to know absolutely if something is true. If someone claims that a news event has to be real because they saw a tweet about it, they must at least be able to admit whether such a thing is possible to fake. What I find is that true believers don't know how much fakery is even possible, much less in common use. The people who automatically believe the news really do catch mind viruses. The censors in high places want the public to fear memes because one might catch whatever bad ideas contained therein. It seems the ideal citizen of the future will lack the ability to deliberately reject ideas and will be passive recipients of programming and instructions. I'm beginning to suspect this is where we are headed. A new human is emerging, one totally augmented with a digital world that has been utterly censored and merged with the state's chosen operating system. This future requires that we lose the ability to know real from fake. The world stage is subjective and arbitrary, and its existence rests more upon narratives than facts. Discerning fake from real is now outsourced to trusted news agencies, all of which operate from within the closed informational system of the world stage. We are going deeper into the simulation. The metaverse is conquering the meatverse. Masked minds, quarantined thoughts. We accept the reality of the world with which we are presented. It's as simple as that. Christoph, Truman's mind control programmer. The media-manufactured worldview as a model of reality has enabled the power elite to create a hive mind. The majority are misled by design with media literalism. They exist in ignorance of how their big picture has been formed. They carry the mass media's burden of proof, not recognizing this as the blind spot it is. The collaboration between government, media, entertainment, military, law enforcement, religion, and every other trusted institution is too vast to be viewed from within this Truman Show-like enclosure. Most lack the perspective to deconstruct the big deceptions. The existence of a psychological war isn't immediately apparent to the quarantined minds of the mass media consumers. Before 2012, nobody outside of the actual Psywar operatives knew what a crisis actor was. You had to be an insider to have a clue. We have been under a mental quarantine this entire time. The peeks we get behind the curtain are our only glimpses into somewhere outside of the established worldview. The perspective that we are being lied to on a deep level, that there are insiders and outsiders, is a major step forward in appreciating just what the world stage is. To see the system in its entirety, one must step outside of it. To question the system's motives or purpose is to entertain a hypothetical situation in which one might have been deceived. We are in a closed system, and most choose to remain mentally masked and quarantined against ideas that invalidate its claims. If you find this subject interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear the rest of the series, the IPS Deprogam, a skeptic's guide to the theater of Psywar and IPS production.